One time I accidentally dated a red pill incel. I'd never actually met one in real life. I thought that they were all bots. I broke my number one rule, which is that I never want to date anyone that I have to explain feminism to.
It's almost as if women care about more than looks. Huh.
And then he called me on a second landline and he left a 10-minute voice message about how I was never going to find anybody and I was rude, and I was never going to find anyone because I was rude, and I'm not ready for a relationship and I need to go to therapy.
I did a video the other day, it might have been yesterday, and there was a dude and he was talking about how women really want conservative men and they don't want soy boys and all of that goofy ass stuff. And I was like, that's like the opposite of what women are saying they want. That's like quite the opposite of what women are saying they want. And a lot of men, they get mad at me because I'm so assured in the things that I say about women and men. Especially about men for sure, but like even about women, like I say things about women and men are like, how did you know that? How do you know that? And I'm like, well, beyond the fact that I like take the time to study this stuff, I'm just listening to what women are saying. I'm telling you what they're telling me. Well, you know what I'm saying, or what I'm hearing in the ethos. You know what I mean? I'm like, where are y'all antennas at? Because the women are getting online every day and saying exactly what they're looking for in men or what they don't like in men, even. You know what I mean? I'm just and I'm like, almost like, but then I think, and I'm like, well, these dudes' algorithms are set up so that they only hear the women that do, because there are women out here pandering to these men, telling them that these women want conservative men. There are women out here, you know, uh, 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 that do like conservative men. There are pick me's out there. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. Those women are out there, no doubt about it. So their timeline has those women on there. When they come across those women, when they encounter women on their timeline, they're usually those women, right? So, okay, a part of it is that. But you can go seek other, you know what I mean? Like other opinions, like that's okay to do, gentlemen. Because I'm coming across hella videos like this.
One time I accidentally dated a red pill incel. I'd never actually met one in real life. I thought that they were all bots. I was on a dating site before I was banned from all of them. And I never swipe yes on anybody. I just wait for them to either super like me or reach out. I started a conversation with a guy that was physically my type. And in his bio, he said that he was Pakistani Australian and he was really, really fit, super strong, bodybuilder, and covered in tattoos. And I was like, period. His profile said that he was 6'1". And the first message he sent me, he was like, I'm actually 5'11". Is that a problem? And I said, no, but lying about it is more of a problem. And then he said, I find that females won't swipe on me if I have 5'11" in my profile. And I was like, okay. We met up for a coffee and a walk. And on the date, he was like, oh, I really like that you're not wearing makeup. And I was like, I am. I'm wearing tinted sunscreen and mascara. And he was like, oh, I prefer the natural look. And I was like, well, it was undetectable. On the walk, he was like, you're amazing. Why are you single?
That is, hold on. We got to talk about that. That is exactly what women be saying, but also what I know about men. I learned this a long time ago. I was like, we really don't know shit about makeup. Like, men don't know what the fuck natural looks like, natural looking makeup looks like. Like, I saw a woman do a full beat. Her shit was awesome. And she started the video like, I'm gonna do a natural beat, woo, woo, woo. And then she did it. And I mean, but because I watched her do it, I was like, oh, she put on a shit ton of makeup, but it was considered natural. She put on a shit ton of makeup. Like it was probably like 45 minutes. If she was speeding through, it was like cut, but it was probably like 45 minutes of her applying the makeup. Beautiful. But it didn't, you couldn't really, it wasn't overt for sure. Especially if you're a man. In the movies, when the women wake up, when they wake, they're supposed to look like they just woke up in the morning. They got on a full fucking face of makeup. Like men don't be knowing shit, bro. Nothing. That's why I don't even talk about that shit. I like what I like. I like when I see it. I'm like, that looks good. That's all I fucking know. Don't care if it's makeup or not. Who cares?
Sunscreen and mascara. And he was like, oh, I prefer the natural look. And I was like, well, it was undetectable. On the walk, he was like, you're amazing. Why are you single? And I was like, it's by choice. And then I listed off some of the dates that I'd been on recently. And I was like, these were all bad dates. And I mentioned in passing that I would never date anyone that listens to Joe Rogan or Andrew Tate. And then he started defending Andrew Tate. And I was like, that's weird. Then he went on a big spiel about how relationships should be a two-way street and mutually beneficial. And I was like, that's a weird thing to say, but okay. Everything else seemed fine. So I agreed to a second date. I was like, let's go to the gym. Let's pump some iron together. He was criticizing feminism, and I was like, I am a radical feminist. And I broke my number one rule, which is that I never want to date anyone that I have to explain feminism to. He then asked me what my biggest fear in dating and marriage was, and I said,
wait, that's a pretty good fucking rule. That's pretty good. That's smart.
Feminism too. He then asked me what my biggest fear in dating and marriage was, and I said that I would end up with somebody who was abusive and then would eventually unalive me, or that I would have children with someone who ended up abusing my children. And he said, false accusations. And I said, only 2 to 10% of allegations are proven to be false or unfounded. And that's only of reported cases of assault. And that 2 to 10% of unfounded is also a lack of evidence, which doesn't mean that the accusation was actually false. And then he went on to a big tangent about how he's rich and his parents are rich and all of his assets are in trust so that when he gets married, a woman can't take him for everything. And then he said that the only way he would have a child with a woman is via an overseas surrogate so that the woman has no claim to the child. And then he told me that he wanted to get leg extension surgery. And then he pulled up a YouTube video of all these dudes who were healing from physiotherapy from getting leg extension surgery so they could be taller. And I was like, you're 5'11", like that's not short. And then he was like, would you ever share me? And I was like, well, like polyamory? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I would be open to different styles of relationship anarchy. And he was like, men have more needs than women, so I need to have sex like 6 times a day. And I was like, okay, well, you don't know anything about my sex drive. And then he told me he was a male stripper. And I was like, okay, cool. Sex work is work. And then he got annoyed with me because I wasn't jealous. And I was like, we just met. And then after the date, he sent me a message saying that we were looking for different things and blocked me. And I was like, okay. Then he unblocked me and he was like, I'm really sorry about sending that message and blocking you. Can I make it up to you on a third date? And I was like, sure. At this point, I was just morbidly curious. And by the time the third date came around, I was really unwell. And I was like, I am super sick. And he was like, but I bought all of this chicken and all these ingredients to cook for you. And I was like, that's sad. Maybe just cook it anyway and then eat it yourself. And then I just blocked him because I didn't want to get more messages berating me whilst I was unwell. And then he called me on a landline and then I blocked that number. And then he called me on a second landline and he left a 10-minute voice message about how I was never going to find anybody and I was rude and I was never going to find anyone because I was rude and I'm not ready for a relationship and I need to go to therapy and it's all my fault that he will never date another woman or trust another woman again. And then he went on a big tangent about how females are all the same. We're all girls and followers and sheep. And that I needed to learn to submit for my future husband. And how deep down all women are just gold diggers and they just want to be provided for. And men should be providers. And that I'm a feminazi. And that women have rights and men have no rights. Anyway, I hope this helps.
So... wait, so he is in the men now because now he's never gonna date another woman again. Like the things that I the queer coded language that red pillars use sometimes kind of blows my mind because I'm like, for you guys to be so homophobic, you guys definitely sound very queer. Like the way you guys talk about women, and that's why women like call men gay a lot of times. and men like are trying to like reverse that and be like, oh, look who's being homophobic now. And I'm like, nah, it's because of the things you guys are saying. Like the things you like, listen to what I'm saying. If a man says I'm never gonna date a woman again, I mean, okay, are you gonna be celibate? Is that what you're saying? Because you would have just said you're gonna be celibate, but you just said you're never gonna date a woman again, specifically. So that only leaves men in my mind. You see what I mean? Like I don't, and so if she presumes or assumes from there that he's gay, I don't think she's being homophobic. And men say weird shit like that all the time because they hate women. And then when women like interpret that as like a queer, like coded message, and then say like, "Oh, well, you're probably gay," or "I think he's gay," then now men are starting to be like, "Oh, you guys are being homophobic," and I'm like, "Nah, bro. You guys have to, you guys have to start hearing this shit with the ears of a normal person, not with the ears of a fucking Nazi red pillar." Like, hear that, like, live in reality. Listen to what you guys are saying back. Say what you say, and then play it like go to fucking like do some unpacking, do some therapy. I don't know. Do shock therapy. I don't know what the fuck you guys need at this point. And then listen to that. Listen to that message. I guarantee you it's gonna sound very different than the way you remember it. I promise you. Men are very, very weird. Like red pill men, very weird. They say very weird shit. But that was crazy how that devolved. You know, it devolved. This is a huge reason why women aren't interested in dating in general, but definitely dating online. It's just weird. It's just a very weird thing. And I can see why women are like apprehensive to date, to date online. Because guys are strange. Guys are really weird. And I almost forgot. So she said that he was a jacked, he was a male stripper. So close your eyes, think of a male stripper. He looked like a male stripper. I know male strippers are usually buff and fit and all that stuff. And he still can't get a woman. He claims to be wealthy. I don't know why you would be a male stripper if you're wealthy. Your choice. Still not able to get a woman. It's almost as if women care about more than looks. Huh? Because the red pill dudes keep telling us it's all about looks. The red pill men keep telling us it's all about looks, that the women only care about looks. She matches with the guy, agrees to go out on a date based on attraction. Totally understandable. Don't mind it at all. She likes the very, conventionally masculine presenting man, right? Buff, bunch of tattoos, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. Don't have a problem with it. But that wasn't worth it. She ended up blocking him because he's a freaking weirdo. He's an extremely misogynistic, red pill, right-wing weirdo. And she was like, nah, I'm a feminist, and this doesn't jive with my ideology. I do think that she was giving him more chances though, based on attraction, because she said that she doesn't usually mess with men who she has to explain feminism to, and it sounded like she had to explain feminism to him. Seems like she ignored some red flags based on attraction, right? We know the lust fucks with the low with the pre with the whatever the front the prefrontal lobe or whatever. It fucks with it. We know that. So maybe she was making some concessions, but ultimately he got too weird. It only took her 2 dates to figure it out. Well, 2.5 dates, because she almost went on another date with him. But it only took her 2.5 days to figure it out. You know, it is, yeah. Women aren't, men want women to be shallow so bad so that they can justify their treatment of women, but also because they really want to be able, they don't want to have to do any work in figuring out what women actually like. So they try to force women in a box. You know what I'm saying? Because as long as you think all women want is a buff man with the, with the whatever jawline, with the prominent jawline or whatever the case may be, then you could just go do that. That's easier to do than working on yourself, you know. And even if you strike out over and over and over again, you'll just make up some reason as to why she didn't like you. That's all, and that's all they do pretty much, and the cycle continues.